Right. Happy Friday, everybody. I'm like, I moved my computer now, shaking. It look like I'm shaking. I'm not shaking, y'all. It's just my computer. Happy Friday. I am so excited to have this conversation with the doctor. I had to just change her title in my phone to Dr. Dominique Horton. We hope to have an amazing hour of just laughs and love and all things celebrating Women's History Month, as well as Social Work Appreciation Month. Both Dominique and I are social workers, former school social workers. So I am so excited to have this conversation with you, especially as we get ready for the SWA conference. Shout out to all of my School Social Workers of America folks. I cannot wait to see you all in Denver next week. It is going to be an absolutely amazing experience. I told Dominique before we started, I was feeling Brandy in my spirit this morning. I was like, I love her. So this is so perfect. Dominique, I'm going to send my text messages to people, inviting them to join us in this space. I encourage you to do the same.
Yes.
Anybody that's tuning in live, share this link with like 15 people. And then we're going to jump into this conversation. But we're going to send our text messages out. I am getting a new phone for everybody that know me personally and know how janky my phone is. New phone is coming. First, I'll send me the same phone, just a new one, because my warranty is still good. Okay.
Are you an Apple or Android?
Android.
That's right, because my texts aren't blue, which is like, ugh.
I cannot get with the Apple thing. I'm like, it's so stupid. It's not intuitive. I know. Apple, please don't sue me. It don't sue me. But Android, y'all better have my back because I've been with y'all. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how to work it. I'm like somebody grandma. I told you.
Come on over.
Or great grandma, because grandmas is out here using these Apple phones, killing the game, and I'm over here struggling every day. So let me send these text messages inviting folks to join us in the room, get in this conversation, because it's gonna be a good one, y'all. If you have ever had an interest in school social work, we're gonna talk all about it: the good, the bad, all the ugly. Okay, let me see. Let me send this to my friends in Maryland. Shout out to Baltimore, and Adele County. Thank y'all for loving on me and letting me come do a training with y'all last week. It was amazing to be with you all. And I can't wait to come back because I'm claiming it already. Y'all gonna send me back and I'm gonna come back and we're gonna finish our good conversation. Who else I need to invite to this conversation? Oh, Dominique, did I send you the link? Let me send the link to you. Let me send the link to you. I'm so sorry. I'm just sending it to everybody. Okay. We are sending our links out, inviting folks to join us in this room to participate in this conversation with us. We'll invite you to ask questions as you see fit. Happy Friday, everybody. I hope this week was good for you. It has been a week for me. It has been a week, and I am trying my best to stay sane and all the things. So I'll probably talk a little bit about that on Sunday for our conversation on Sunday. So for those of you who are interested, please tune in on Sunday. I'm going to have Erica Dimwitty with me on Sunday, and we're going to talk about traveling social workers. As well as Erica used to be a end of life social worker.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, that's gonna be real good. That's gonna be a good conversation. So
I'll just be tuning in.
Please do and send it out to your people. Because that thing is something else. It's yeah. So happy Friday, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in, for coming into the space. Dominique and I will continue to send our messages out, inviting people into this space. I don't know about you, but March seemed to like...
It evaporated.
I can't even believe it. Like I when working in schools, March is always like the dreaded month.
Yes.
Because it is the longest god awful month with no
Yes.
doggone days off, and everybody hates everybody. And you
Well,
are
you are anticipating spring breaks,
because you
but it
holding
cannot be.
on by your teeth for spring break. You are like, God. This year March like flew by. Like
It did.
I looked up and I was like, oh, okay, it's
You're
over.
there.
Literally
Yeah.
almost over, and we are
Yeah.
fastly approaching April. And April, hopefully, will bring some really beautiful spring weather. My tulips are so ready to come up. And
Yes.
I'm hoping they can come up and not freeze like last year. So anyway, happy Friday, everybody. I am Tanisha Jointer. I am the founder of Investor Consultant Firm. And at Investor Consultant Firm, we provide customized training and development to folks around trauma and healing center practices. You can follow us on Instagram at Investor Consultant Firm. You can check us out on the web at www.investorconsultantfirm.com. And I am so honored to continue these conversations with women that I feel like are just making herstory. I am so blessed to have so many amazing women in my life, in my network, who love on and pour into me. And so as my team and I started thinking about what we're going to do to celebrate Women's History Month, I just hit up all my people. I think I might have sent a mass text first, and then I stalked them via email. And I am so grateful and so excited to have this conversation with not only of a former colleague, but a friend and someone that I absolutely adore in the school social work world of all spaces and places too. I'm going to turn it over to you, Dominque. Thank you so much for being here with me on this
Thank you for
Friday,
having
early
me. I'm
evening.
honored to be here.
And I want to invite you just to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you.
Yes, well, Dominique Andrea Horton. I love to use my middle name now to honor my grandmother and her very recent passing. I was named after her in a lot of ways. Her middle name was Anne, so my mom said Andrea. So I've been honoring her by talking and sharing my middle name. Um, I am a former school social worker for Chicago Public Schools. I did that for, ooh, but I would say about a decade. Social work and special education assistant and teacher assistant. So educator, social worker, spent a lot of time in schools. And that work really fueled me to think about doing my PhD, which that is where I am now. I'm in my fourth year of completing my, yes, I made it. I didn't think I was going to make it this far.
I knew you were. I had no doubt in my mind. When you first told me, I was like, yes, girl, do that for all of us.
Yeah. And first year, I was like, I'm out of here. I'm done. But I'm thankful for folks like yourself and faculty mentors here that have helped keep me, centered and helped keep me going. But I am in the dissertation phase, and I'm continuing to work around school equity for Black families and children. And so I'm really excited around the research that I get to do now. And I just recently launched my private practice. So I am out there on my own, also servicing adults and teens. So I'm excited. I am a social worker, definitely through and through.
I love it. So anybody that is out there looking for a social worker, definitely hit up Dominique. We will
I'm still
definitely
accepting clients.
come on. Clients. I might have a client that I can send to you because I am not seeing clients anymore. Just don't have the bandwidth right now. I will send my people to you. Anybody out there that knows someone who is looking for an amazing therapist, please do make sure you stay tuning in so we can get you Dominique's contact information. Or Dominique, you might as well share it with us now. We'll share it again at the end. So how can people reach you?
Yeah, you can reach me at dhorton at becomingtherapeuticservices.com. I'm also on the gram, Dominique Andrea, and I'm on Twitter, Dominique Andrea. You can find me there too.
I love it. I'm absolutely about spreading the news about the services and supports that folks are offering. So thank you so much for sharing with us that part of you. I want you to talk just a little bit about your PhD program. I know you said you're in the dissertation phase, wanting
Yes.
to give you an opportunity just to speak to your studies and what all are you studying and what do you see that impact being?
Yes. Well, you know, I guess coming towards the end of my career in CPS, I really realized I started to get uncomfortable or unsettled, I should say, not uncomfortable, but unsettled because I felt like I wanted to do more in the sense of I was realizing I was coming up against things that I couldn't necessarily change, such as policies and things of that nature as a school social worker being on the ground. And so I started thinking about, okay, how can I make even more impact, given what I've been experiencing with families and with my students. And so I started sort of pursuing the PhD route again, kind of looking into schools. And, I wasn't quite sure. I had applied for schools, years ago, but I never thought that I would return back to academia. I loved being a school social worker. So I felt like I would be there, for a good long while. But I really started to yearn for wanting just some dedicated time to dig into some of the things that I was finding and noticing in my practice with students and
Mhm.
families. And so I decided to apply to some places. And this hopefully would be encouraging for folks who might be thinking about, pursuing a PhD. I did not get into programs the first time I applied. I only applied to one, but I didn't get in. And the next time around, I applied to a few more, got some rejections, but I also got an acceptance. So I'm here at Washington University in St. Louis, and it ended up being the perfect place for me.
Mhm.
It's not without its challenges, but it's been a really great time of growth. It's been a really great time of stretching, not only as a social worker, not only as an academic, but as a woman. It's
Mhm.
made me a better woman 4 years later. And so I've just gotten a chance to really dedicate myself to the literature. One of the things that I was really interested about was parent and family engagement. So it's kind
Oh,
of funny that you mentioned that earlier, before we hopped on. I wanted to know, what the literature said about parent and family engagement, and also what it said about as it pertained to Black families. And so that's what my dissertation and my work currently focuses on, is reimagining parent and family engagement for our population. And I have really found some interesting things as I've gone about, my studies, and writing my area statement and doing my quals and all that good stuff. And now I get a chance to partner with a school district here in St. Louis where we get to investigate that a little more. So I'll be talking to students, I'll be talking to families, I'll be talking to educators, teachers, and asking them, how is it that you define parent and family engagement, and what does that mean to you? And what are your perceptions of what it looks like and feels like now? And are there any avenues for change? So I'm really hopeful to get some really great, meaningful data to give to the school district. But I'm also really hopeful that this will have some meaningful impact for other districts that I hope to, uh, and work with in the future. So
oh my
I'm
God.
excited.
I mean, just talking about um I was sharing with you when we first started the work that
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing with districts across the country. And one of the things that I'm learning in my work with them is like everybody's talking about what parents are not doing. Right? It's
Mm-hmm.
so easy for us to go to what parents are not
Mm-hmm.
doing. And even in my time in CPS, it was very
Mm-hmm.
easy for us to talk about what parents are not doing.
Yeah.
But what would happen if we reimagine what we thought engagement to be? So
Mm-hmm.
I am so excited about your work. I'm so excited to see where this work goes because I think this will be transformative not only for St. Louis, but for school districts across the country and how we again reimagine supporting parents, how we
Yeah.
reimagine parents supporting educators. Because I think
Yes.
one of the things we know is that schools work when we all work together, right?
Yes, yes.
It works when we are all working in collaboration, in tandem. So I am so excited that that is work that you're taking on, and know that that is amazing work to be
Thank
doing.
you.
And it is going to be absolutely groundbreaking to the profession. My wheels are turning. Like, let me make sure I connect you with the family
Yes.
engagement in Chicago. Let me make sure I connect you with Clever Character. Here in Chicago, because Damian Howard was doing some work around
Okay.
parent engagement. He and I actually collaborated, and we did a training for parents around SEL. So I think that'll be a
Awesome.
great just kind of avenue. So yeah, with sidebar, we will definitely dive into that
Yes.
on like how to really bring this to life. So big ups to you for even caring in a space that I imagine that there's limited literature on,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
knowing that you are contributing to reimagining how we engage parents in this process.
Yes, I'm excited. I'm excited too.
As you should be. Um, okay, so how did we meet?
How did we
Uh,
meet? Yes.
uh, I know. I think I was there first. Yeah, I was there. I was
You
there.
were.
Dominique and I met at Deneen Elementary. Shout out to Deneen,
Yes.
outside of
Hey,
Chicago.
Denise.
That's right. And I have been the full time school social worker, and
Yes.
Dominique arrived as the ODLSS, or I
Yeah.
don't want to say just special ed social worker, because I felt like myself, we were
Mm-hmm.
both everybody's social worker.
Yes. Yes.
Um,
Teachers too.
don't even get me started for how many teachers was trying to be on our couch. I'm like, could y'all please find y'all some business? Like, I do not get paid enough for your mess too. Okay. But Dominique and I met there, and I think in that situation where one person is there and another person is coming in as another social worker, it could have been a very like bump
Yeah.
head confrontational, you taking over my turf. But I don't feel like we ever had that type of
Mm-mm.
moment. I was so happy. I was so
Same.
happy.
Same.
I was so happy when she came, because Dominique was so willing to invest in every student, not just the diverse learners that were on her caseload. Dominique was very much willing to be a supportive partner with all of the students, with the entire school, and be a part of the school culture. And I really appreciated that. So Dominique, I just want you to share a little bit just about the journey of being a school social worker. I know we have
Yeah.
very different experiences, because
Mm-hmm.
I was a full-time 5 day a week
Mm-hmm.
school social worker at one school, and you
Mm-hmm.
have had the pleasure of working at multiple schools as a
Yes.
school social worker. So if you don't mind just sharing a little bit about the profession, and what it looked like for you.
Yeah. Well, I always say that school social work chose me because I didn't, when I was completing my master's, I did not imagine going into schools. My track, I had focused on health, mental health, and I just envisioned myself totally somewhere totally different. I got the awesome, unique opportunity to be a White House intern under the Obama administration in 2009. I think we were his second class of interns. And I got a chance to really do a deep dive into policy. And that sort of made my desire for, civic engagement and policy grow even more. But I knew sort of at the end of the internship, at least for that season, that I really wanted to come back home to Chicago. And I really wanted to sort of, run the ground and be in my community. And so, but I didn't know what I was going to do. I was jobless and I was trying to figure it out. I was like, okay, I'm just, I'm going to try to find a social work position that I feel like it's going to be best for me. And nothing was lining up. I mean, nothing. So a friend of mine reached out to me. They knew that I was looking for a job, and they said, Dominique, I have a friend who has an opening in their school on the north side, actually, and it's for a teacher assistant position. So here I am with my master's degree, and I said, you know what? Okay, I need some coins. I'm gonna,
Gotta secure
give
the
it a
bag, y'all. Gotta secure the bag. If y'all listening for these gems, she said, I'm gonna secure this bag. Okay. Mm-hmm.
So I thought, it'd be sort of short term. I love children. But I thought, okay, after I stay there for a bit, I'll find something. And I tell you, I fell in love with schools. I really did. I fell in love with the environment, seeing kids in their natural element at school. It's not like any other environment. I think to see children and to provide services. You get to interact with their teachers, you get to interact with their parents, you get to interact with their peers. So everything that a child might come and say to me in private practice, I get to be there in their element and see it as it's happening, right? Like I can pop into the classroom and I can see, like, now, you told me a story in our therapy session, and I see you cutting that back here in the back of the classroom, right? I mean, I've seen all sorts of things, but it allowed me that space and avenue to be able to provide sort of that real time, support to students. And so it really just chose me. And so I decided to go back to school and get my postmaster certificate and all the things. And I interned with CPS and then went on ahead and waited for the position to open up. And I, started practicing as a practitioner in CPS. And you're right, I had the pleasure of being at a lot of schools.
Such a pleasure.
Such a pleasure. Initially, when I first started out, I mean, CPS was, I think, really going through a lot in terms of the budget. And so, and the union fought really hard to get more social workers, more nurses towards the end of my career, but it was tough. We were stretched pretty thin. So I remember, as a budding school social worker starting out, I mean, having, I don't know, close to 70 students on my caseload. And I was at 3 different schools and helping out a social worker who had like 100 kids on her caseload, right? So it was definitely, I mean, I was thrown into the fire. But I also, the positive side of that was getting a chance to really see how different schools operated.
Yes.
And also because we know schools operate in the context of their community, in the context of their neighborhood, it's also very interesting to see how those dynamics impact, students and how, they show up in schools. And so when teachers or personnel would talk about some of the issues that they were faced with at their schools, sometimes I had that outside perspective to say, well, it actually could be a little bit worse. Or you're not alone in what you're facing. There are definitely other students and other staff and other schools that are sort of having some of the same challenges. So I really appreciated that side of it, of being able to be, a kind of a multi-site social worker. But I was so happy when I arrived at Deneen and you were there. And because that's not something that you get always, another full-time social worker at a school. Like, oh my gosh.
You know what? I don't think we ever had this conversation because I share that same sentiment about school choosing me. Like you, I never wanted to work in schools, like ever. I remember the first day in grad school, they were like, "Who do you want to work with?" And my hand went up, like, "I don't want to work with kids or old people." Like I was so adamant about it. And I agree, like it chose me. So to the young people who are listening, to the folks who are in positions and you like, I don't know, let it choose you.
Yeah.
Be still and let it choose you, because sometimes what you're looking for, it will choose you. And both Dominque and I have had the pleasure of allowing something that we love to choose us.
And knowing that your career path isn't linear, sometimes it takes you on crooked roads and paths.
And you just got to be willing to go. So again, to young people and folks who are in positions and kind of like, be willing to move with it. Another gem I felt like you brought up was the Obama Fellow. Shout out to the Obamas, period. In my mind, Michelle is my best friend. I don't know if I ever told you that, but like I love her. That is my best friend in my mind. So shout out to,
I know, right?
Miss Michelle Obama and Mr. Obama. We love you too. All of the Obamas. But to the Obama fellows for the amazing work that they're doing to really ignite that sense of advocacy and civic engagement in young people. Um, you talked about being stretched thin, and I love that because I think oftentimes we look at school social work as this like, oh my God, this is beautiful thing, and you have this like beautiful schedule. And while the schedule is great, sometimes it can be very difficult. And you can be stretched so thin, and hoping that any leaders and policy leaders and educational leaders that may be tuning in, we really think about how do we create space for social workers to be successful. How do we create that space so that folks are not stretched so thin? Because our kids will get the best of us when we're able to be the best version of ourselves. So
absolutely.
those were nuggets that I heard, and I wanted to make sure that I shouted them out.
Yes.
Because you were talking about the experiences with students in school. I kept thinking about all of our shared babies.
Yes.
Dominque and I could probably, like, first of all, IRS, y'all owe us some money, okay? Because we done took care of some folks' kids, and we want our coins, okay? We should have been filing them on our taxes is what we should have been doing. Because Dominque, let me tell y'all something about Miss Horton. Miss Horton was taking care of some babies, okay? She was loving on them kids like they was hers, and she was recruiting others to do the same. So shout out to the social workers who are truly loving on our students and wanting them to see the best in themselves, because that's something that I saw you do day in and day out, is really hanging a mirror to our young people and showing them the best versions of them when so many people tried to tell them that they were something else. So big ups to you for that. And you taught me that, because I was like, what am I doing, Jesus? What, somebody gonna get hung up by their shoestrings?
Tanisha, I feel like we complimented each other so well, though. Like our personalities. Like I knew exactly the children. I was like, she needs to see this. She needs to see Joycer. I'm gonna send you right upstairs. Like that is her baby.
And the conversations, oh my God, I'm like going through all of them. And like we
Memories,
we go to graduations, y'all. We will show what we pulling up at your graduation, your 8th grade, your high school. We are still loving on these kids to this day. Dominque has one in specific. Like when Dominque went away to school, she was like, I need you to take over. I said, girl, say less. I'm on the phone. I'm calling this child's school. Do y'all hear me? Because I wanted to make sure that Dominque was able to be abreast of what was going on with this kid. So shout out to the social workers that are loving on these children like they are your own. And y'all need a pay raise. So Uncle Joe, come on with these doggone Joseph, JoJo. We is tired, okay? Anyway, we out here. We want some tax credit too. But anyway, we can go on and on about the joys of our collaboration. And shout out to Miss Cotton, aka Miss Jackson, now, because she was another oh my God, tool in the toolkit, feather in our hats, that really worked in tandem with us to hold the whole school down, not even just the students, but the entire school and the community. So shout out to her. She is definitely chiming in. So thank you so much for your support as well. Dominque, so I love that you talked about like this kind of wind and turns and this and that got you to the profession. For people who are, and you work with school social workers still, right? At WashU.
So yes, well, social workers in general, but yes.
Okay. What I'm wondering is, what advice would you have to a new social worker, somebody who is like, I'm thinking about the profession, I want to get in the profession. What advice would you have for them?
Where would I begin?
Don't say run. Whatever you do, don't say run.
Right.
Because we need you, especially the ones of color. We need y'all real bad.
We do. I guess one of the first things that I've noticed and that I would share would probably be to what extent you are able to take time to heal.
Ooh.
You know, all of us choose this profession, I think, because we have a story. right? There's something in our background that pushes us to want to support others in the way that either A, someone supported us, or B, we wish that someone had supported
Mm-hmm.
us. And so a lot of times, the natural inclination is to say, I've gone through this and I want to help others who are, navigating the same. But I would just admonish people to really just take some time to heal because, just because we have a story doesn't always mean that we're meant to do social work, right? Because social work it is truly a labor. It is a labor of love, but it is a labor nonetheless. It is emotionally, it can be taxing. You see a lot of things, there are a lot of demands, and you're also coming up against all the systems, right? All the isms, and it impacts you because you see that it impacts those that you're, desiring to serve. So it is very easy to go into this thing unhealed, and then we're, kind of bleeding on our clients, or we become even more burned out or quicker to burn out because we haven't paid attention or given, we haven't attended to the healing that needs to take place within ourselves first. So I would say probably that's the first line of advice as you're sort of, in your program or you're thinking about a program. Glean as much as you can. I know campuses have, and I know mental health is expensive, but to what degree you can, try to make sure that you are taking care of yourself and attending to that part of you. Um, I would also say to, it can be very siloed, it can be kind of lonely,
Mm-hmm.
so
Mm-hmm.
try to be intentional about having a village of other clinicians that you can lean on, that you can consult with, that you can talk to. That, I mean, it makes the job so much more easier when you have a cohort of folks that you can talk to. Being able to have you jointer at Deneen and being able to pop into your office when I might have been on the verge of tears, or I might have just felt super frustrated, or I'm maybe not knowing what to do exactly on a
Mm-hmm.
case. Being able to, pop into your office and, pick your brain about, what to do, or to just, like I said, vent or share. It just made all the difference in my day. So having a cohort of folks that you can talk to. And then, like I said, self-care, even if you've decided, okay, I'm going to commit to this program, I'm going to be a social worker. I think committing yourself to taking care of yourself intentionally, having a plan of self-care, being proactive about all the things that you're going to put into place to support yourself during this work. There's what is it called? Trauma stewardship by
Mm.
Burke and Vandernoot, I think his name is a really great book that helps clinicians think about how to sort of steward what they are sort of coming into contact with on an
Mm.
everyday basis, and give some really, really great tips about that. So those would be sort of my, go-to advice pieces, although the list can go on and on.
I love that. That healing part. Oh, baby, because if
Yes.
I don't talk about that every single day, I am talking about people in their healing journey, on their journey, whatever that may be for
Mm-hmm.
you. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. Like coming into this profession, doing the work, right? You ain't
Mm-hmm.
got to be completely done, right?
Right.
Because healing takes time.
It's a journey.
It is a journey, it is not the destination.
Right.
But just even having some sense of awareness, right?
Mm-hmm.
I talk a lot with my clients about savior complexes. We come into this work
Mm-hmm.
sometimes like, I'm gonna save the children. And Ruth Payne's Understand the Framework of Poverty. I don't know if I ever shared this with you. Like that book completely checked me. as a
Mm.
Black woman supporting Black students
Mhm.
in an all Black community, like that book checked me on how I
Mhm.
was showing up for my students.
Yeah.
And I think that was the beginning of me just like doing my work of why am I really here and what am I really trying to accomplish. And
Mhm.
so I too agree with that one. Like, please be in a space where you can check yourself.
Yeah.
I agree with the village, like having your village, your network in schools, out of school,
Yes.
but making sure that you have a space that that will pour into you and will call you on your stuff. Um, I agree. It's a long list because I'm thinking of like 15 things that I can
Yeah.
tell people like who are interested in the work. What I definitely would say though is like know that when you come into a profession like school social worker, um, ain't nobody looking for you to say them.
Right.
Ain't
Right.
nobody that ain't what they ain't nobody looking for you to say them.
Right.
And come with the mindset I want to do the work with you.
Yes.
I think that was one of the most beautiful things I learned from you is to um, humble myself and do the work with the
Mhm.
people. Right.
Mm.
Because I had my ideas of what I think the work should do, what it should be, and what we should be doing. Right.
Mhm.
But really, like, now let me hear from you. What is the work you want to do? And how
Mm.
can I be a support with you? How can I be on this journey with you?
Yeah.
So anybody who is interested in a profession, it is a beautiful profession. Um, it can be a beautiful profession, but make sure you come doing some of your own work first.
Yes.
Um,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
thank
Absolutely.
you for that. Thinking about the profession though, what do you imagine or what do you think should be or could be the next hope or the next I don't know if I want to say growth in the profession. Like what do you think could be next for the profession?
Yeah. That's a good question. I think about the profession in the context of education because that's what I'm so close to. Um, I had been reading a few articles around just calling the profession to matters of educational justice.
Mm,
And, with us being so, we're all schools, and we understand the importance of schools and education. But when I think about the social work profession broadly, I can't say that there is this unifying framework or there's this
mhm.
passion to revitalize and rethink, I should say, schooling in the US. And
Yes.
what greater profession to be at the forefront of educational
Yes.
justice, not just equity, but justice, right? One of my guiding researchers that I love so much, Gloria Ladson Billings. She coined this term called educational debt. It's not new, but it is the lens with which I think I approach this work because when we think about the moral, the social, the economic, the political fabric of the US, we can find schools right at the center of all of those pieces, right? Of all the decay, right? That Black American students, students of color, and families
Absolutely.
find themselves like education is at the root of that. There was a historical denial of access to education for, especially for Black families. And so what does that do cyclically, right? To our, our economics, right? Our ability to have upward social mobility, things like that. So we don't really always think of social work in the context of education, but it is a central piece to our, the US and what our families, what our people are up against. And I think starting there is really important. It's crucial.
I literally was on a call last week with Teach for America teachers, and I talked about education being a social justice movement. And
Yeah.
like that is where, like, what are you talking about the revolution? Like that is where it needs to take place. And
Yeah.
like seeing school social workers leading that charge and mobilizing parents and
Yes.
mobilizing students, right, to really advocate for themselves. Oh, would it bring me all the joy in the
Yeah.
world? So
Yeah.
SWA, School Social Workers of America, NASW, what is it? National Association of Social Workers,
Mhm.
DOE, y'all call us because we gonna try to save y'all from this uprising because it's coming. Because we gonna secretly be telling them like
Yeah.
rise up, like this is the time, like there is the space for us to really again reimagine how we are educating our children. It is there's an opportunity for us to do something different.
Yeah.
And I that is absolutely one of my greatest hopes for the profession. I hope that we can see we can figure out a way to get more people of color interested in the
Yeah.
profession.
Mhm.
I think oftentimes so much in schools are um, full of people who do not look like the students that they are serving.
Yeah.
And I think it is so important for children to see themselves in their buildings. And that's
Yes.
actually how I got into school for that same reason. And so I really hope we can figure out a way to engage our students of color. I'm thinking about like some intentional efforts at our HBCUs to
Mm.
really
Yeah.
mobilize young people to go into the profession. Um, because there's so much work that they could do, and our young people need to see people that look like them advocating for them with them. I think that's my greatest hope.
It is. It is. We need more of us in the profession. We know that teachers, it's still white, female dominated, as well as social work, right? It's still very
Absolutely.
white, female dominated, and research points to the positive impact of having more teachers of color. Um,
Mhm.
of course, more mental health professionals of color in schools. So definitely got to get that pipeline going.
Shout out to Jane Addams. They were doing a whole cohort of
Mm,
social workers of color, really trying to bridge that gap. They were working with, I want to say, some community organizations across the city and
yeah,
trying to engage their employees to come and get their master's in social work. So shout out to Jane Addams for at least starting that work, hoping other universities can really take that on and engage folks of color. Because we need to be credentialed and we need to be in schools supporting children.
absolutely. And making the space safe for those folks to come,
That part, absolutely.
right?
We tired of the microaggressions. We tired of trying to prove ourselves. We got to
Mhm.
come with all our credentials.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. And then supporting them once they've launched off right into their professions. I think there can be this greater bridge between academia and social workers on the ground. It shouldn't be where, okay, we graduate, we know that the real work happens when we get out there in the field.
Yeah.
And what greater impact would it have if we were able to really reach back and still have those mentors, still have access to those research databases? We want to be evidence based,
Yes.
evidence
Yes.
informed, but we don't have access to that information anymore. Yes, we could go to our local libraries, but what greater impact would
Accessible.
it be, right, to have that accessibility right there? So
I definitely agree. That's a really good point. One thing I'm thinking about doing is getting into offering supervision to school social workers.
mm-hmm.
Just because, again, in so much of my work, I'm learning that people do not have the support.
Yeah.
And like you, people are just kind of tossed into the field and it's like, okay, go.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so much that you have to learn on the fly in that. And so,
Yeah.
wanting to offer those resources to school social workers as they are trying to get into the profession. Um, because it's so many little nuances that you'll miss in that.
And
Um,
And it's getting even more intense, right? When we think about all the legislation that's happening, books that are being banned, right? AP Black American courses um, being put to a halt, and all the things, right? That we're we're going to have to be able to navigate, and having that support in order to do so is crucial.
I love it. Hey, I done looked up at the time. I can't believe we
Oh
are
my
like
gosh.
under, what is it, maybe 20 minutes less, 20 minutes down.
Yes.
I'm like, I like have so many other questions that I
Yes.
want to ask. Let me look at my questions real quick
Yes.
and see what is with me. If anyone has a question for either of us, please feel free to drop that in the chat. I'll make sure that I read those questions. Dominique, you got a bunch of folks in here shouting
Oh.
you out, some family in here with us, shouting you out and showing you some love in the
Oh,
chat. So I hope you're able to see that.
I do.
Um,
Hey, y'all.
One of the things I think I wanted us to talk about, and I think you've kind of alluded to this too, is those key things that can help a social worker be successful.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I know we talked a bit about those silos in schools, and I will maybe speak to that a little bit more, just about the silos that we can experience in schools as social workers.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you get assigned to these schools, and you're most of the time the only social worker for the building. I think the great thing about being in schools, if you choose schools to go into, is that, you're not alone in the sense that you have other team members, right? I really appreciated having my school psychologist. Shout out to Angela wherever you are.
Angela was the best.
She was the best, my girl. Like, I could count on her for anything. And nurses, right? A speech pass, and being able to sort of pick their brains around student needs. But you are the social emotional expert of your building, and it can be tough when you're presented with a situation, and on the spot you've got to respond, right? A fight breaks out on the second floor. What are you going to do, right? um, I remember with one of my classes that I taught here at WashU, we provided sort of these case studies, and we took case studies from our real life practice, and they were like, what?
It gets real in the street.
So we would ask students, what would you do in this case, right? And so it is really difficult to sometimes feel like you have to navigate that piece alone, and you can only hope in that moment that you're making the best decision that you can. But I think it's just important, though, to know that you can't do it alone. And sometimes there's this expectation or this pressure that you do have to have it all figured out. And I just want to give folks permission to say, that no, you don't have to have it all figured out. You can reach out, to and tap into, like I said, your village, your network, so that, you are making the best, because we know we're working with humans, and that is a lot of pressure. You want to be able to make the best decision that's evidence informed, that you can make.
You know what I just realized? I don't know that we even explain what a school social worker does. Like, because it's so a part of who
Yeah.
we are. Like, I'm like, wait, do we even tell people what we do?
That's
What we do?
true. I mean,
Um,
folks in schools didn't really know what we did.
Very true. Like everybody thought we just had like magic dust and we was going in there sprinkling on kids and popping them on the head and telling them be great.
Right.
And that's not what we do.
Right.
We don't fix kids. That's not what
Yeah.
we do. Even
Yeah.
though that's what everybody tell us to do. So Dominique, do you mind just sharing your perspective? Because again, while we were both school social workers, we had two very different experiences.
Yeah.
And so for your school social work, what did that look like?
Yeah. For me, so I was hired under the Department of ODLSS, Office of Diverse Learners and Supports.
Students, yeah,
Yeah.
something like that.
And so we came in with the pointed, task of supporting students who had an individualized education plan. So students who may have been provided an educational diagnosis, whether it might have been, attention deficit disorder or emotional disturbance or specific learning disability. Maybe the student was autistic, right? Many times they would have what's called a 504 or an IEP. And many times attached to those documents was the services of a school social worker to support them socially and emotionally within the school building, where you would have goals that you would meet, benchmarks to meet those goals. I would provide direct services to students in group or individual settings, but I would also be consulting with their teachers, right? And providing, behavioral support, providing them ways to think about behavior modifications in the classroom. Also helping educators to kind of rethink, I think even you kind of spoke to this earlier, Tanisha, just as a Black woman being sort of checked, right? Because sometimes, even as Black educators, we don't realize how much racism
Mm.
impacts our students, impacts the way we're able to teach, the way we're able to provide, therapeutic services. It impacts everything. It's literally, the air that we breathe. And so I think sometimes we got into this, norm of thinking. And I, like to say that it's in part some internalized racism, right? That we don't always know that's there. But really having educators sort of rethink the way they saw children and how they showed up to their
Mhm.
classroom. And, that's not, I think, taught enough in teacher preparation classes
Yes.
or, in mental health programs, right? Sometimes I think we get a bit more of it because we are social workers and we understand systems. But even I, like I said, wanted to do a deep dive in learning more about my history. I'm Black. I'm from the South Side of Chicago. I'm from Chatham, 7912 South Ellis is where I grew up. um, and I knew a lot of things personally, right? Professionally, but there was still so much to learn about my history and how that really shows up in all these spaces. And so I think really helping educators to think about those contexts when they
Mhm.
have their students in their classroom was also really, really important to do. And I think helping, shift the thoughts, I think allowed educators more room to, sort of navigate some of the behavior, behavior concerns that would come up, but also allow them, sort of to have a bit of that patience and kind of think about, their classroom in a different way. And that always felt really good when teachers would say, okay, like that helps me, that
Mhm.
helps me feel more equipped. It helps me feel more empowered.
Mhm.
The
So that is,
role list is long, but that's
I
a
was
few
like,
things.
because you left out the IEP meetings, the parent meetings, the all of this other
Yes,
stuff.
yes.
And I think what my work as a school social worker looked different because
Mhm.
I was in the school 5 days a week.
Yeah.
And so, as a social worker who was in a building 5 days a week, my support was with all students,
Mhm.
our diverse learners, or students with IEPs or 504s, as well as our gen ed students, and really supporting just that culture and climate of the entire building, making sure that we are collaborating with community partners, and trust and believe y'all. I was looking for them. I was finding them. Like, come on up in here.
Yes.
Making sure that we were creating this kind of safe space for all students, and then collaborating with Dominique and her team,
Mhm.
to make sure that, again, I'm advocating for students and what they need, and also supporting the teachers. And so, school social work, while there is an idea of what it is, just listening to the difference in how we both operated as school social workers, it can be such a broad
Mhm.
um, space to navigate. It can
It
be somewhat whatever you want it to be. A lot of my work was advocacy and creating policies and practices within our buildings, and training the adults on
Yes.
how to see and understand student behavior, and again, teaching those social and emotional skills to students and the adults.
Mhm.
And so, like, there is such a wide it's just such a wide net of what you can do as a school social worker. So again, if you are a person, young person, old person, I don't care, anybody who is interested in being in schools and collaborating and thinking and learning with students, definitely consider school social work, because it is not just this one box that you have to fit in. There's so many things that you can do in
Yeah.
that work, in that role, that will truly change the lives of generations to come in ways
Yes.
that you
Yes.
can't even imagine.
Yes, those students remember you. Like there's a joy to that. When you had a student when they were in fourth grade and they're graduating high school and they're still texting you, or you get that random text from a mom that said, I really appreciated how you supported my son, my child when this student passed. That
Yeah,
makes it all worth it. It's a beautiful thing to watch them be able to grow and develop and graduate and move on, and they remember those encounters. You remember the good positive educators that made a difference in your life.
I love it. And completely true with like feeling, you talked a bit about feeling isolated. I wanted to make sure I double back to that, because I think as a school social worker, you lay in this very interesting space. You're
Yeah,
not a teacher, you're
right.
not an administrator. And while, like Dominique, you had a team, you can still feel very isolated. So again,
Yeah.
as you are considering the profession, think about who is going to be my village, who
Mhm.
is willing to able to, who can I collaborate with, and join teams. All
Yeah.
schools got teams. They're like 1,000 teams. It's usually 20%
Mhm.
of the people doing 100% of the work. But that's neither here nor there. But join a team, because it will really, one, let people know what you do. You ain't got no magic fairy dust. You're like to
Right.
kids, because that's what everybody think.
Yeah.
But join a team and really contribute to, again, just the fabric of school and how folks are educating children.
Yes.
Um, Shoot, I looked at the time again. I'm like, dang, where's the time going? Um, so I see we're almost out of time. Dominique, if you don't mind just reminding folks about the research you're doing, reminding folks how they can connect with you. Yeah.
Yes. Well, I am really focused on any aspect of how racism impacts the educational and social well-being of Black children and their families. So that's where my work really lands. And currently, I'm really investigating parent and family engagement, and whether traditional models that we use in schools is really effective, right, for Black families, and also just understanding how much we don't tap into the voices of Black families. They have been historically sort of silenced or not invited really to the table or really partnered with. And again, because of many of the false perceptions that are placed out there, that, you mentioned this earlier, Tanisha, that, oh, we don't care, or we're lazy, and that just isn't true. There's a way in which Black families engage their children all the time, through instilling racial identity and pride and socializing them to know what school isn't and what it is and how to be prepared. And I think tapping into all the cultural assets that we possess. And
Yeah.
I don't know that people really acknowledge the fact that Black folks have so many assets that we show up to every space with, and school is no different. And so, really wanting to lift that to the forefront, when it comes to thinking about educational justice and helping to, give more voices to families, but also giving voices to teachers as well. It's something that I'm really very passionate about, especially teachers of color that are out here on the front lines, who feel many times, research has said, very called to the work that they do, which means a lot of times they're in places and spaces and schools that have really poor working conditions, and they're doing a lot with the little, but they're still, expected to do everything under the sun, right? And so, bringing that to the forefront, we can increase the pipeline all we want, but if we're not making room for those teachers and educators to be, retained, then we're sort of being counterproductive to right? We're kind of not being productive in how we're going about having more folks of color commit to the school. So that's really what I'm passionate about. And you can find a lot of my work on Twitter, Dominique Andrea. And I'm on Instagram on the gram, Dominique Andrea. I'm there too.
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you so much for this conversation. I have been so excited. Like I was like, oh my God, I gotta talk to a school social worker. I gotta make sure that I prioritize that. So I really appreciate you taking time out of your evening to be in this conversation, to be in this space, especially as I'm teeing up for School Social Workers of America conference next week.
Yeah,
So I'm gonna definitely let them know to tune in and check this conversation out. One thing that is sticking in my mind, I don't know, do you watch Abbott Elementary?
I do. I don't get a chance to catch every episode, but
I
I love
need
it.
Abbott to reach out to us, and y'all send this message to the people and send this
Yes,
to
come
Quinta,
through
okay?
Abbott. Yes.
Um, reach out to us because there needs to be a social worker in their building,
Yes,
and
that's true.
I need that. I wanted. I'll take my side note of
True.
who I wanted to be the school social worker, but um, I just think that they need to introduce
Yes,
that
that
role in that
dynamic.
show
Yeah.
because school social workers do so much and contribute so much to just fabric and the community, and I would love to see us elevated in that way. So Quinta, um, hit up your girls because we're ready
Yes.
to help you write the script, and we're gonna put this social worker in there, and we're gonna put all the good experience that we have had on the screen for the people.
Yes. Yes. I love
Thank
that.
you guys so much for tuning in and for staying with us in this conversation. We really appreciate you. Your family has showed up and showed out in this chat. So thank you so much, y'all, for being here with us. And again, my name is Tanisha Jointer. I am the founder of Investor Consultant Firm. You can follow us on Instagram at Investor Consultant Firm. If you, your organization, or your school district is wanting to support Dominique and her work, they can reach you out. They can reach out to you at Dominique.
Dominique.a.horton@gmail.com.
Okay. Got to do all the plugs. I want y'all to post this video, share this video. Yes, share it with Quinta, y'all, because we ready to be on Abbott Elementary. All of my friends swear to God I am Ava. And I probably am in school. That's why I had to get up out of there. Dominique, thank you so much.
Thank you for
I
having
appreciate you
me,
so much.
Joyster. This was
Thank
so much
you.
fun.
Thank you. And thank
I
you so
miss
much for the
you.
contribution that you are making to not only the profession, but again, that the work that you're doing that will impact generations to come. Thank you
Thank
so much for
you.
the history that you are making right now today.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. Remember, Sunday, we're going to have Erica Dimwitty with us, and we're going to be talking about traveling social workers. New movement. Folks are doing all these traveling medical industries. I'm so excited about it. We will also be having in that conversation we'll be talking about end of life planning because Erica has experience in both. And so I am super excited for that conversation. So please tune in Sunday at 3 p.m. And thank y'all so much for being here with us tonight. Good night, everybody.